This is Healing at Soul Level with your host, Shawna Williams. Shawna is here to provide various forms of healing that are non-invasive, that promote relaxation and aid the body in naturally healing itself by using ancient healing techniques that have been around for centuries. So please welcome the host of Healing at Soul Level, Shawna Williams.
Hello, and welcome to Healing at Soul Level. I'm your host, Shawna Williams. Today's guest is a healer and teacher. She's an angel practitioner and an angel card reader, which are just two of the many modalities she practices and teaches. She also has a bachelor's in metaphysical ministry and is the creator of Sacred Spaces Pillowcases. She's also an author of The Angels Orchestra. I'd like to welcome my guest today, Patricia LaDale Lane.
Thank you, Shawna. What a lovely introduction. I appreciate that. I'm looking forward to today's visit with you.
Yes, it's going to be wonderful. And, you know, I've been reading your book and I feel like I know you so much better. And everything that you've went through is just, it's all the synchronicities and everything that you went through. It's just amazing to me, you know?
It's amazing to me, too. Sometimes, in fact, I was telling a friend the other day, I said, sometimes I pick up that book and start reading it, and I wonder who wrote that and who experienced all those amazing synchronistic events. And then I remember, oh, yeah, it was me. Yes, it's full of magic and miracles and angels and hope and inspiration. And I believe that it's an inspired work because when I read that, sometimes I think, wow, those aren't my words, even though those experiences happened to me. But thank you. I appreciate that. It's a book that had to be written.
Yes, I'm glad you did read it. Write it as well, too. I remember there was one part in there about your dad's near-death experience. How did that affect you?
Well, yes, I start out the book with my dad's near-death experience because that is what started me on this spiritual journey, even though I had always been curious about spiritual things, and I was never really tied into a traditional church. My belief system has always been more spiritual. My dad's near-death experience did accelerate my spiritual growth, and that was just an amazing experience. He had been sick for a long time, and he had this near-death experience. We were in the hospital, and he had COPD, so he just simply had pneumonia and could not breathe. So he did pass over, and he was brought back and put on life support. And it was about a week afterwards, before they could take him off of the breathing machine, the life support. And that's when he told us that he had this amazing experience and he had gone to the other side. And even though he was not over there very long, it was only a few minutes. He talked about hearing the music of the angels. That's what he talked about more than anything, was the feeling of peace, the absolute feeling of love, like he was cherished, and the sound of the angels' music. And he would look at us and tell us it was my music. It was the music of my soul, and they were playing that music of my soul to me. And he was headed down the tunnel that, if any of our listeners have ever studied or read anything about near-death experiences, there's usually a tunnel, and you go towards the light. And there's shadows, there's soul family at the end of this tunnel that are anxiously awaiting your arrival. And so he was headed in that direction. He saw the shadows, and he was brought back suddenly. And, he did tell us, he said, he asked us, why did you bring me back? Because, he was ready to go. He had been sick for many, many years, but there was no anger there. And, since that time, I've come to realize that it was a gift for all of us, because my father no longer had a fear of death. And that's what I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to understand what had happened to him and why he came back so changed. And so I began to read everything I could on near-death experiences. There were a lot of studies being done at that time, and this was what was when I was in my 30s, so it was about 25, 30 years ago. And I just could not, I became so thirsty. I just knew there's more on the other side. There's so much for us to learn. And there was a paranormal experience that happened shortly after that. And it just accelerated me on this journey. And when you're on this, what I like to refer to as a spiritual quest, it's like you can't get enough fast enough.
That's true.
And yeah, absolutely.
It's addictive.
And I've also had always had a keen sense of intuition, even though I didn't realize that. So, some things that I would pick up to read, some doors that I would open did not resonate with me, and that's perfectly fine, because I think we don't try to fit things into our box, into our, life that don't really, resonate with us. I always tell people, when you're on this quest and you're thirsty for this knowledge, and always, of course, stay in the light. And secondly, that if you come across something that doesn't resonate with you, if you purchase a book and it just is not answering the questions, or it doesn't feel right, it's perfectly okay. Just give that book to someone or put it on a shelf, because, 3 or 4 years later, you may pick that book up and you may go, now I get it. It resonates now.
Yeah.
Because spiritual growth, absolutely, it's a learning process, and some things are just going to resonate at such a soul level. And the study of, near-death experiences led me to learn about past life regression. I've always believed in reincarnation. So it's like the steps of a spiral staircase, taking those baby steps, one step at a time, and just going with what really resonates with you. And there's some really great books out there. I list a lot of books that I studied in the last over the last 30 years.
Right. We're going to stop right here and take a quick break. And when we get back, we'll finish on with this story. Welcome back to Healing at Soul Level. And I'm your host, Shawna Williams. Today, we're talking with Patricia LaDale Lane about working with angels. And when we left off, Patricia, you had mentioned in the first segment that there was a paranormal experience that you encountered. What was that about?
Yes, it was actually my dad's and I'm so glad you asked me about that, because I did want to discuss that, because it's one of the things that just basically changed my life. But about 3 months after my dad experienced that near-death experience and was brought back, I was over at my parents' house one morning. They lived across the street from me, and I walked in, and I could tell that my mother had been crying. And so I asked her, and my dad was very weak still. He would spend the next year on oxygen before he passed away. But but I could tell he had been crying. So I went into the kitchen and I asked my mother what happened. And she said, well, I don't know whether I should tell you this or not. And she said, it's just so bizarre. And I said, well, Mom, go ahead and tell me because, there's no secrets. My parents were like open books. And she said, well, last night the phone rang about 2:30 in the morning and woke us up. She said, I answered the phone, and on the other end of the line was John Brown. Now, John Brown was a friend of my dad's. They had worked together in carpentry all their lives. They had been close friends forever, and John Brown had suffered from the same thing that my dad did, the COPD. A lot of construction workers who didn't wear masks and breathed in the sawdust ended up with COPD as they got, older. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I said, well, Mother, what did he say? Because I couldn't understand what could be so important that she would be crying. And she said, well, I answered the phone, and it was John Brown's voice. And he started laughing, and he said, called me by LaDale Lane, which was what he always called my mother in a funny little rhyming way. And he said, I need you to tell Virgil that everything is just fine. And Mother said, well, and I said, well, Mom, what's so strange about that? And she said, well, Patty John Brown passed away 3 weeks ago. And I looked at my mother and I said, you must have dreamed that. That just automatically, that could not happen, right? And she said, Patty, it was John Brown's voice. And when he got off, and she said he was only on the phone for a moment. And in the end, he said, well, I'm going to get in trouble for this one. And she said he just started laughing. And it was John Brown's laugh. You know how people have distinctive laughs. Yeah. And I'm getting the bumps all over my shoulder as I tell this story. And so I just thought it had to be a dream. And my dad came out of the bedroom about that time, and he said, John and I made a pact. We both knew we were dying and didn't know which one of us would go first. And he said that was John Brown keeping up his end of the pact to get in touch with me and tell me everything was just fine. And I just looked at my parents, and then it dawned on me it couldn't have been a dream because they both experienced it. My dad said, we've been up since 2:30 this morning. We couldn't go back to sleep. We've just been talking about this. And, I've heard a lot of people, I'm very interested in paranormal experiences such as that. Whether my dad brought some kind of energy back from his near-death experience, whether he opened a portal. I've made pacts with friends who were passing away. I've never had contact in that way, but I believe that things like that can happen. It happened to my parents. It happened to them both together, which is a little unusual because when paranormal experiences happen, it's usually to one person at a time. And in this case, it was both my mother and my dad, which was even more validating than, many of the stories that I've read. But that opened the door even wider, and I was even more thirsty because I believe we put limits on God. I believe we sometimes put limits on the abilities of angels. We're going to talk a little bit in a while about angels. I believe we put our belief systems into boxes, and I try to tell my students, don't put God in a box. Don't put divinity into a box.
Right. That's right.
Because miracles happen every single day. I'm proof of that. The miracles that have happened in my life, the divine guidance that I've had, that I write about in my little book, is it reads like a fable. The book reads, and this story that I just shared is in my book with a lot of other amazing stories. But we just can't put miracles in a box. Miracles happen every single day, and that was a miracle. And I believe that was a gift. It was a gift for me. And that may very well be one of the reasons that my father was brought back to life and that he experienced that near-death experience so that I can share these stories, so that I can inspire people to realize that, we can, so many different things. I'm an energy worker. I believe we can change our lives with our thoughts, with our vibrations, that we open ourselves up to miracles. And in a moment, we're going to talk a little bit about working with angels. And I'm going to share another story with the listeners about divine guidance and guidance that I actually received myself that's led me to not only to write the book, but to what I do today, to the work that I do today.
Wow. I didn't share this story with you, but I actually had the same similar experience with my brother when he passed. He called me and said everything was great. He says, "It's fun. You're going to like it when you get here." I said, "When I get where?" And then he laughed and hung up.
Wow.
And I never shared that with you. But yeah, that happened to me.
Didn't.
So no, I didn't. We're going to take a quick break, I know, right after this, and we'll talk some more about working with angels. Hello, and welcome back to Healing at Soul Level. I'm your host, Shawna Williams. We've been talking with Patricia LaDale Lane about working with angels, and she said she had a story to tell about how she started working with angels. So let's get with that, Patricia.
Yes, I had an experience, and we talked a little bit about my dad's paranormal experience, my mother with that phone call. But I had an experience that, although it was different, it was very similar, and it propelled me into doing the healing work that I do today. And I was very sick at the time. I had suffered a stroke, and I had adrenal fatigue and fibromyalgia, and just really sick, and I was searching for ways to heal myself. And I was sitting at a red light on my way to my corporate job, which it was a miracle that I was still able to even hold on to this job with all the fatigue that I was feeling. And I looked up, and on the right-hand side of me, there was a bus. And on the top of that bus, in big green letters where the next destination should be, was the word Raphael. Big green letters. And I looked away, and then it dawned on me there's not a street in Fort Worth. I live in Fort Worth by the name of Raphael. And when I looked back, I saw Rosedale. But I had seen Raphael, and I had never before seen something with my eyes that wasn't really there.
Right.
And so I knew it was a sign, because I'm always praying to my angels, even before I began to really work with angels. Show me a sign. I've always followed that guidance, and that's part of our intuition. And so I just said, that was strange. I think that was a sign. Give me more. But I didn't know what Raphael meant.
Right.
And so I called my husband, and he said, I think that's one of the archangels. And I said, I wonder if it's the archangel of healing. And he said, I think it is. So when I got to work, I Googled it, and sure enough, it was. And I sent up a prayer of gratitude, because, I'm always grateful for any kind of divine guidance that I receive. And said, show me more. That's got my attention. And when I got home from work that night, right in front of me, I turned on the TV, and I didn't even change the channel. There was a program about the archangels, Raphael, Michael, and Gabriel.
Wow.
Didn't even change the channel.
Nope.
And I thought, whoa, wait a minute, what's happening here? And the energy in the room was so high. I got the angel bumps. I started crying. I actually, and I asked, what's going on here? And in my ear, because I'm clairaudient, I just heard, well, we're going to work with you with the angels. Look around you. You love angels. And sure enough, I do. All of my mother's angel statues are in my curio cabinets. I have all these books about angels. I've always loved angels. I've always believed in angels. I've always been fascinated with angels. And boom, there it was. We're going to work with you. We angels, we're going to work with you on an angelic level because you've always loved us. And
amazing.
so I just said, give me guidance. Show me what you want me to do. Because at that point, I was a believer. I mean, I was always a believer. But at that point, with those two things happening back to back, I knew that there was something magical happening. There was some amazing guidance, and it was going to help me to heal myself. It was going to help me to get better if I would just do what they asked me to do. And so about a week later, a friend of mine who's one of my mentors, she was my first Reiki teacher, called me and she said, I'm going to go to Houston to learn to read angel cards with Charles Virtue, who's Doreen Virtue's son. Would you like to go? And it was quite expensive. I didn't have a lot of money. I was very sick. I just suffered a stroke. But I knew I had to go. I knew I had to put it on a credit card. I just knew that it was part of this sequence of magical events that was going to lead me to my life purpose. And so I went. And, until that time, reading cards, that just sounded so bizarre and strange to me. I was a banker. I worked in a bank. I lived in a very conservative world. And I remember telling my friends about these series of events that were happening to me and getting these strange looks like, that stroke must have affected her mind, right?
Wow.
But I knew in my heart, I knew. And I think that when we receive this kind of guidance, that we're on this kind of a journey to finding our soul purpose, and that when the answers begin to come, we just know at a deep soul level that it's what we are supposed to do.
Very
so
true.
I learned how to read angel cards. I believe that my intuition just truly, truly turned on during that time. I began to trust the things I was receiving, and I stepped through my fears, because at the end of that 3-day workshop, I was knowing things about people that that there's no way I could have known those things if that stuff was not being given to me by the angels, if that information was not being fed to me. And so for several years, I stepped through my fears. At the end of that workshop, I said, okay, I'm going to have people coming to me, strangers that are going to sit in front of me, and I'm going to be giving them angelic guidance, spiritual guidance, and information and validation of their lives. And the angel said, yes, you are. And I said, well, you better make it easy. I'll do this work for you. I will do this, but make it easy for me. Because, by then I was in my 50s, and I made an agreement. I said, make it easy for me. I'll do this work, but I don't have 10 or 20 years to learn how to read traditional tarot. I will do this work intuitively. You give me the information, and I will relay it. So I'm like a channel. They give it to me. Boom, it goes out. When you study from Charles Virtue or even his mother, Doreen Virtue, they tell us that we are like a telephone pole. A telephone. It comes in, and we're to give it out, no matter how strange and bizarre it sounds. And we're always to do that in a very kind and gentle way. And it's amazing the information that you receive.
Yeah, that is amazing. We're going to stop right here and take a quick break, and then we will be right back. Hello, and welcome back to Healing at Soul Level. I'm your host, Shawna Williams. We've been talking with Patricia LaDale Lane about working with angels. And Patricia, you've been telling us about how, you get all these signs and stuff. And it reminded me of this one quick joke I'd like to tell, where this guy, he's sitting on a roof because, it's flooded all around him. And a guy comes by in a boat and says, hey, you need to hop on this boat because it's flooding. If you stay here, you'll drown. He goes, no, I'm waiting on God. And he goes, okay. And he leaves. Second guy comes up in a boat, says, hey, man, the water's getting high. Hop on in. He goes, I'm waiting on God. He goes, okay. I know you've probably heard this. So then the third guy comes by and again, he denies him and says, look, my faith is in God and I'm going to wait on him. So the guy drowns and he does die and he goes to heaven and he sees God and he goes, God, I thought you were going to save me. And he goes, I sent you 3 boats. What do you want me to do?
Yeah.
So when you get these signs, you have to realize.
Yes, I'm so glad you told that story because I just want to, I mean, yes, it goes back to don't put God in a box. Don't put the angels and what they can do for you in a box. And, I've had so much angelic guidance in my life and so many signs and so many times I've been asked to do something and I'll go, whoa, me? Really? Not me,
Yes.
But I've learned to follow that divine guidance. And when we are working with the angels and when we're asking for divine guidance, I guarantee you it's not going to come to you. It does not come to us the way that we expect it. It always comes in a different way. And, but it will come. And it will always involve stepping through fears. Always.
Yes.
Your life purpose, divine guidance, it always involves stepping through fears. And I always tell my students that the bliss is on the other side of the fear. The bliss. Don't put God in a box. Don't put angelic guidance in a box. Trust what you're receiving. And test it. And in a little while, we're going to go through a little bit of a formula I have for working with angels. But before we do that, I want to kind of share another story with you that's from the book. And I don't know if we mentioned that I'm a Reiki master teacher,
No, we
also
didn't.
a spiritual counselor. I do that with my ministry, which is really an angelic ministry. And so I would say probably about 6 months after I really stepped forward and trusted and began to read cards, within a couple of months I was reading at all of the big fairs in Dallas, Fort Worth, and still healing a little bit, but I really wanted to have more energy and feel better because I still worked a corporate job. And so I was guided to continue my Reiki certification and to get the advanced levels and to actually begin to teach Reiki. And so I think this is an important thing for the listeners to realize, that if you are guided to do these things, and you just, the signs keep coming, repetitive things, you feel deeply within yourself that this is your calling to help people and to help heal people, whatever energy modality, whatever way, that you decide to do that, because there's so many different ways we can help people, even our voice, even, just sharing stories. Mm-hmm. But that you step through your fears and you do that. I was guided to finish getting my Reiki certifications as high as I could, which I did through the International Center of Reiki Training, and to begin to teach Reiki. And I had these doubts in my mind because I don't know everything. I'm such a baby. I feel like I'm such a baby on this spiritual journey. And I said, I don't know enough. So I kept learning and reading and taking classes. And finally in meditation one day, I was just told, you know enough to begin. And there are people out there who are just beginning their spiritual journeys. And you know enough to begin, and those are the people that we will send to you, because I have the ability to take complicated things, and I've done this all of my life. I've done it in the job that I do now, which is a technical job, to take complicated ideas and theories and put them into layman's terms. I speak in a very simple way. I talk in a very simple way. I teach in a very simple way. It's more of a heart and soul connection. I don't think things need to be complicated. I think we learn so well when we just connect on a spiritual level, and it's not the really, things are so complicated in the world as it is. Take those baby steps, those simple baby steps, and they will lead you and guide you to where you need to go. So I teach Reiki now. I teach a Reiki class once a month. Teach through the International Center of Reiki Training, which is if you'll visit, if any of our readers or our listeners who are interested in Reiki, if they'll visit Reiki.org, it's the website for the International Center of Reiki Training, and you'll find a lot of information out there about Reiki and energy work. Reiki has been a big part of my healing myself today. I have very few residual effects from that stroke that I suffered so many years ago. And,
that's great.
Yeah, Reiki will teach you about energy, and I truly tell people that the beginning of the spiritual journey, the first thing you need to do is learn to love yourself so that you can raise your vibration, about that vibrational match. And then to learn about energy. Love yourself first and begin to learn about energy. So that
That's true.
You will know how.
Well, that was very interesting, what you were saying about Reiki. I also used it because I have a eye disease, and so I use that to stop the progression. But we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll come back and continue this conversation. Welcome back to Healing at Soul Level. I'm your host, Shawna Williams, and we've been talking with Patricia LaDale Lane about working with the angels. And she said she's going to show us her formula, or tell us about her formula for connecting with the angels.
Yes. Thank you so much for that. I would like to talk a little bit about working with angels. We've talked about how that came about when my clairaudience kicked in, and I was led to take some classes with Charles Virtue and Doreen Virtue on reading angel cards. And so I've come up with a little formula with working with angels. I know that we talked a little bit while ago about our vibration and keeping our vibration high. And angels vibrate at a really high vibration. So if we can work on keeping our energy clean and clear and our vibrations high, and let go of some of the thinking that we find ourselves falling into, we'll find that working with angels and hearing the messages and feeling the vibrations is a little bit easier. But I always tell people that the first step, if you really want to work with angels, is to just simply invite them into your life. We all have angels around us. We're born. We have guardian angels who protect us and guide us. But we invite the archangels into our lives. We just ask. I asked Archangel Raphael to come into my life and to help show me and guide me ways to heal myself so that I could get well, so I could do this work that I do. And I was miraculously led to holistic practitioners who knew 20 years ago what adrenal fatigue was at a time when people and doctors did not even recognize what that was. So ask the angels to come into your life. Get into a quiet place. Meditate every morning. I meditate for about an hour every single morning. Those spiritual practices such as yoga, and it doesn't have to be some of us are not physically able to do the really physical yoga. Anything that will raise your vibration level. I do a lot of energy work and a lot of teaching about raising our energy level, but awareness and mindfulness of what you do will raise your vibration level. So you ask the angels to come in, and then I think that you have to open your eyes up to the magic of communicating with your angels. Intention is the most important thing. Set your intention, meditate, pray that you'll be given the signs. Keep your eyes open for those signs. And those signs almost, and when you start receiving some guidance, angelic guidance is repetitive. You'll hear or see or pick up books that are repetitive. You'll start seeing repetitive numbers like 323s, 444s, 555s. Those are indications that you're on the right path. The angels talk to us in a language of their own. Some people notice the animals, the spirit guides. They have dreams. Pay attention to your dreams. Because I believe that God and his angels speak to us while we sleep, and they give us guidance. So learn how to recall your dreams. Write down your dreams. Journal. Just act upon the guidance that you begin to receive when you invite the angels into your life, because you will begin to receive guidance. Be open and be receptive. I believe that practicing mindfulness in our lives, you can't be in a high vibration if you're dishonest and not doing those things of a high vibration. Many of us have to change our lives. We have to change the homes that we live in. We can't be in those negative environments any longer. Right. We have to make changes in ourselves and in our lives. We have to practice love. We have to practice compassion, practice gratitude on a constant basis. I'm always saying thank you, thank you, thank you. And kindness to others, because angels are love. We talked a little bit earlier about the love that was felt when my father passed over. It's about love. It's about compassion. It's about kindness. I'm a huge giver. Nothing makes me any happier than to be able to give, and so. I've been so blessed. I live in a modest home. I still work the corporate job, probably retire in about a year so I can do more of the teaching and the things that I'm passionate about. But I'm so grateful. Every day I wake up and I connect with my angels, and I ask them to show me the magic. Show me the magic today. So that's the one thing. After, invite your angels in, and then before your feet hit the ground in the morning when you wake up, connect with your angels, with your guides, with God, with your higher self, with whoever it is that you are, and whatever it is that you believe in, and ask them to show you the magic today. And then keep your eyes and your heart open for synchronicities and signs and spiritual guidance and those repetitious things and those feelings and those bumps. I get those angel bumps when I say something to someone, or a message is really coming in that I need to deliver, I get those bumps all up and down my left side of my body. Pay attention to those kinds of things, because as your vibration raises, and you know, our thoughts, our pure thoughts of love and inspiration and music. There's a lot of music that will really raise my vibration very fast. You know, find those triggers, find those keys that raise your vibration. And Reiki is one of those things. I go to bed every night giving myself Reiki because it helps to heal me. It helps to build my immune system.
Yeah.
We're the ones in power.
Yeah, that's good messages. That's good formula for us to follow. I will be changing a few things that I do to coincide with this. We're going to stop right here, though, and take a quick break, and then we will be right back. Welcome back to Healing at Soul Level, and I'm your host, Shawna Williams. Today, we've been talking with Patricia LaDale Lane about working with the angels, and she has given us so much information about working with the angels and about her story. But she also practices other modalities. So I'd like for her to tell you a little bit more about the other things she does and how you can reach her for some of her services.
Yes, thank you, Shawna. I do teach and I practice several modalities. And the easiest way to reach me is to visit my website, which is Sacred Spaces by Patricia. So it's www.sacredspacesbypatricia. And when you visit my website, I gift you with one of the chapters of my little book, The Angels Orchestra. When you connect with me out on my website. And on my website, you will find several of the things that I do. I offer card readings. I'm a past life regressionist, so you'll find how you can connect with me for past life regressions. My Reiki schedule for my classes that I teach, which are once a month, and I teach in North Richland Hills, are out on my website. And you'll find a link to my book, which will take you out to Amazon.com, and where you can purchase my book. And my little book is also available on Kindle, so you can also purchase that version of my book as well. I also have a link out there for spiritual counseling, which I do spiritual life coaching. Also work with crystals and have a little Facebook crystal store. And the link for that is also out there on my website. And through Reiki, I began to work a lot with crystals and crystal energy and the vibrations of crystals. You can also find me at some of the local fairs. I'm I have 3 fairs that I attend regularly, and I sell crystals at those fairs. I don't read at many of those fairs. Occasionally, I find time to do that. But the Holistic Fair of Fort Worth, which is at Billy Bob's, I sell crystals at that one, and I do talk because I do public speaking. The Elysian Fair, which is off Luna in Dallas, and also the new fair, which is the North Tarrant Fair. That's a brand new fair, so you'll find me there. I usually have copies of my book, so I can autograph my book for you if you'll find me at any of those fairs.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for sharing everything that you've done today. I mean, it was wonderful speaking with you again, and I'm just glad that you're here.
Thank you. It was an honor. I appreciate the invitation. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you.
So remember, you can reach Patricia at her website at Sacred Spaces by Patricia. And don't forget to pick up her book, The Angels Orchestra, on Amazon. Tune in next week to learn about archangels with my guest, Bevan Neiman from Perceptive Souls. To listen to the podcast for this and other past episodes, or to book Reiki sessions and Akashic record readings with me, visit my website at in-di-goh-qi.com. It's pronounced Indigo Qi. If you have a healing modality that you'd like to share and want to be a guest on my show, then you can email me at Shawna, which is SHAWNA, at in-di-goh-qi.com. You've been listening to Healing at Soul Level, and I'm your host, Shawna Williams. Thank you for tuning in. Love and light.
This has been Healing at Soul Level with host Shawna Williams. Listen each week as Shawna will help you discover the different healing modalities and how to use them in your everyday life, right here on Shawna Williams' Healing at Soul Level.